Hey there, Booktube. I am here to do my monthly wrap-up. I'm just looking at what date it is, and it is the 27th, and I have 3 days left in the month, and I know that I am not going to be able to get anything done between then and now because I have War and Peace that I'm reading, and I'm like 40% of the way done, so that's not getting finished. The Cancer Ward that I am reading with Biblio-Atlas, I'm about 100 pages in, and it's 500 pages. That's not getting done. And then I have Animal Dreams by Barbara Kingsolver, which I'm about 80 pages into 300, so that might get done, but I don't think there's enough of a chance of that happening that I'm actually going to hold back recording. So I'm going to get down with you with what I've read this month. Or maybe rather what I finished this month. So, in order. Meow. We're getting photobombed by the Frank, who has to go to the vet today and does not know that and is probably going to want to kill me later tonight. Yes? One moment. Right, so apologize for that little weird break there. So we're going to start at the start. I've still got a Frank mewing at my legs here, but she doesn't want up because she's not coming close enough for me to pick her up. The first book I finished was The 100 Secret Senses by Amy Tan, who's best known for her work with the Joy Luck Club. This novel, aside from the weird animal violence that kind of pops up, so be forewarned, there's some weird animal violence. Aside from that, it's magical realism, I have learned, and it's actually kind of good. The story is told from, see, her name is Olivia, but her sister, who is from China, calls her Libby. So I get confused. I want to call her Libby. So Olivia is telling the story. She is our narrator, and we are talking about her sister and how her sister came to be with her family, because her sister is only her half-sister. Her father fathered this sister before he came to America, or before he met his wife and they moved to America. And he never brought her from China to America, and then he died, and he basically made his wife promise that she would bring this child over and raise the child as her own. So they do go through that. So Quan, the sister who comes from China, can see dead people. And not in a Sixth Sense, I see dead people way, but she calls it having yin eyes. And she can speak with these people who lived in previous times and who operated in previous times. And so she has to go back to her village for some reason, to see the woman who took care of her prior to her moving to America, and she ends up dragging Olivia along with her and Olivia's separated husband. So calamity ensues, there's magical realism, there are several stories going on. So not only do you get Olivia, who's talking about Olivia and Quan and giving reminiscences of growing up together, and all the horrible ways she was a sister, like seriously a horrible sister at some points. And then we have the people that Quan tells her about and what's happening in their lives. So we get to see this magical world that is existing, and then it all kind of comes to merge together. I gave it either a 3 or a 4. I can't remember out of 5, because 3 is like I liked it but probably wouldn't read it again, and 4 is I might read it again and I would definitely recommend it to people, and 5 is like this is one of my top books of all time and I will reread this many times. This is probably a 3.5 or a 4 depending on what you like. I am not a big magical realism fan, and if there's animal violence I tend to knock it down a peg. But if you're really into family dramas, lots of time, I think That's What She Read would really like this kind of stuff, because you have a really long history of the family, as well as these magical realism people and this village in China that's crazy. So yeah, it's really well written. I really I enjoyed it. I just don't think I'll ever read it again. But I totally recommend, if you're into magical realism and family dramas, that you pick it up. As long as you don't mind that there's, dead turtles and hurt dogs. That's where I draw my line. Next up, my husband got me this lovely hardcover copy because I didn't have a copy. I must have read it from the library in high school, because I remember reading Brave New World. I'd read it before, by Aldous Huxley. And so he ended up getting me the 25th anniversary hardcover edition, which is really pretty. It's got deckled edges. I'm relatively indifferent to deckled edges, but I do like the whole cover. And I made sure to listen to some Iron Maiden while reading this, because they have a song called Brave New World, which is about this. And it's friggin' freaky to read this right now, let me tell you. This is scary. This is scary in our day and age. So Brave New World is the story of, I'm going to screw up their names if I don't look it up. Oh. Why am I not able to remember their names after the guy? And I think that's what we're supposed, because I remember Mustafa Mond being the crazy person, and I remember the various things that they have to tell people, oh, I'm glad I'm a Delta, and stuff like that. So, Bernard, there we go, Bernard. Okay, sorry about that. So Bernard is kind of odd, and people suspect that he's odd because they birthed him wrong, because they don't birth people through the actual act of having sex and incubating a child and, giving birth in 9 months. They decant them from bottles, and they have an entire assembly line for birthing children, and they suspect that he was birthed wrong. And they actually create people to be just the level of intelligence that they need to serve their purpose as a cog in the machine. And he is not working as a cog in the machine. Subsequently, he takes this lovely girl on a visit to New Mexico to visit the savages, because I guess even though this is in the future, we have savage reservations. You will have to pardon me, my husband is actually somewhere where he can use his phone. And so he's texting me, but he's got really bad signal. And so he takes her to the savage reservation to see the savages who give birth naturally, and they find someone who actually ended up pregnant and got stuck on the savage reservation, but had been from the world. And she so badly wanted to come back, so badly, and she ended up coming back and throws a wrench into the whole system. But at the root of it all, we have people realizing just how frigged up the whole system is. It's I view it as part of the triad, which is there's 1984, which is the political version of The Handmaid's Tale, which is the feminist version of Brave New World, which is the science fiction version of all these three. So it was a good reread. I wholeheartedly enjoyed it, and kind of freaked me out. But if you like The Handmaid's Tale and or 1984, I'm sure you'll like it. I also read The Literary Conference by Cesar Eyre, and I can honestly tell you, after reading it, I don't really understand what the heck happened, and I will probably have to read it again. It's all about going to a conference, and he wants to... A main character, who may or may not be Cesar Eyre, builds a fly to get cells from another man whom he wants to basically make a double of. And he has to go to a literary conference and deal with this guy, and then he's trying to create this thing, but he ends up creating a silkworm, because he ended up getting particles of the tie instead of particles of the man, and he holds a funeral for this bug that he's made. It is absolutely weird, but I enjoyed that. So this is translated from the Spanish by Catherine Silver. This book is so cool, provocative, and idiosyncratic. A svelte little piece written with dizzying momentum for which the author is known. Like I said, I will probably reread it. I don't really understand what the purpose was, and I think that's why it's so short, is that you're going to have to reread it a few times. But I've read it once now, and I recommend that if you like really screwed up works of fiction, like Junkie by William S. Burroughs, then this might be for you. I've got threads everywhere. Then, because my husband could restart our reading club, I finished B, which is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. It was a reread for me. Everybody knows the tale of Jane Eyre, who is the orphaness governess who goes to Thornfield and meets up with Mr. Rochester, her benevolent governor, I don't know, master, not a master, but her landlord, basically. And so she works taking care of Adele and teaching her how to be a good woman, you know, all the things that governesses do, and subsequently they fall for each other. However, there is the catch of the madwoman, Bertha. So I'm not giving away everything there, but I loved this the first time I read it in 19th century literature class in university. I have loved it since. My husband is currently traipsing through it quite slowly, but I'm a quicker reader and I have way more time to dedicate. So I made short work of it as soon as we got ourselves started back up again. Then I went on to read, this was my neighbors across the way, whom I exchange jam and vegetables with, are also Tolkienites, and they tend to read a lot. So we were discussing books and recommending each other books, and they said that I needed to read Wen Spencer. So they lent me this trilogy, and it starts with Tinker, and I have the other two and ready to go. So I finished this one, and the tagline is Buffy fans should find a lot to like, and I think that that's a turnoff for me, because I don't like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I don't think that you should use that as a tagline. I did think it was great to see a main character. Tinker is a female. She's a young female who is really good at tinkering, basically. She has a working knowledge of quantum physics and mechanics and can build and take apart anything and reconstruct anything, and she is amazing at this. And I like the fact that the female is very strong in male-dominated fields, and I think she is not necessarily supposed to be a beautiful heroine, which is also entertaining. It takes place in Pittsburgh, except that... Is it Pittsburgh? Yes, Pittsburgh, except that due to some fighting with China, there is a gate that can transport Pittsburgh to another world called Elfhome, where the elves live. Now, that needs better backstory, and I think it needs more fleshing out, but I understand the premise, and I think it's really new and fresh. I'm not sure if that's just because I haven't read a lot of sci-fi or not. The one thing that did annoy me with this book, and the reason I gave it 3 stars, was the romance sucked. And I didn't think there needed to be any romance in it, and I think that they could have been friends. It wasn't necessary to have this weird romance, and like there were makeout sessions that came out of nowhere that didn't need to be there, and there was like a triangle that didn't need to be there. So basically, really enjoyed the main character, really liked the side character of Windwolf, but struggled when it came to the romance. So there you have it. The last book I finished I read on my Kindle, and it is They Can't Kill Us All, Ferguson Baltimore in the New Era in America's Racial Justice Movement by Wesley Lowery. And it was good to read. I think of it more as a first-hand account than anything else. I really wanted more academic involvement. I wanted more studies. I wanted more sources. I wanted more digging. What I got was this is exactly what happened when it happened, and here are the people who dealt with it happening when it happened, and here is what happened after it happened. Which, again, great book. It just wasn't what I was expecting. So if you want like first-hand accounts and you want to see it unfold in real time, it's a good book. If you were looking for more of here's some statistics and here's why this happened and here's, I needed more references, I needed more digging, but it's not a very big book. It's about 241 pages according to Kindle. So I feel like if it would have been a 400-page book with more resources, I probably would have liked it. Overall, I recommended it if you're interested in first-hand accounts of Ferguson and the subsequent other shootings that took place. But if you're looking to find any sort of rationale or any sort of deep conversation about it, this probably is not the book for you. I don't know. We're getting into what is called Victober on Booktube, so I'm looking forward to that. I still have a book tag to do, the book order book tag, which I have to pick out stuff from my yarn stash up here, my yarn books, to do that, and I have been way too busy. I do have a couple hauls that I'm probably going to video. I'm not sure if those will get up today or tomorrow because I have to take Frank to the vet. But that is what I got up to in the month of September, and I'm going to consider that a win, even though it doesn't feel like a lot. I will see you later and next month and at intervals in between. Bye, Booktube.